Good morning, I'm Phil Linhan, the Operations Director. We've been expecting you. Come this way.
Good morning, welcome to Mainstream. Your instructor's on his way.
Morning.
Your instructor will show you through to the administration office, where you'll be introduced to an administrator. The administrator will check your driving licence and will also book your DVSA driving test for your CPC Module 4. Once you've carried out your administration, you can do your training. I'll see you in the warehouse. When you take your CPC Module 4 exam at DVSA Test Centre, the examiner will ask you 5 questions. You have to score an overall of 80%. You can't score 80% in a question, but you can score 75, which means that you need to get at least 75 in 4 and 100% in 1. That'll give you an overall score of 80%, and you can't fail any of them. Throughout your LGV driving career, you will be issued with no end of PPE, personal protective equipment, from things like this heavy-duty jacket that is waterproof and windproof, to many of these other items I've got here on the table. Big, strong, heavy boots with a hardened toe cap that will protect your feet. Different types of gloves, pallet handling gloves, light petroleum gloves, heavy petroleum gloves. Goggles to protect your eyes. A high-vis vest and a helmet. The helmets do have an expiry date, so check them. During your CPC Module 4 test, you may be asked to demonstrate various load restraining devices. And you'll have to do that on a trolley like this. If you do it in the Mainstream group, it's likely you'll use this actual trolley and this actual equipment. But to save going through the likely questions and scenarios you're going to be asked by your examiner, I will explain each piece of equipment and what it's for, and I will demonstrate how it is used. Here we have a rope, and this is used for securing a sheet. I will demonstrate a dolly knot. We've got a web strap and ratchet. This is used for securing pallets. We've got a chain and chain tensioner. This is used for securing steel plates. And a load tensioning bar, which is used to secure roller cages. The examiner has asked you to demonstrate the restraining device that requires a rope. The rope has a loop in the end, and on the trolley there is a hook on this side and a hook corresponding on the other side. We'll take the loop and attach it to the other side. Take it over the top of the trolley, allow the rope to run free. Then you make a loop to start the famous trucker's dolly knot. Bring the loop up and put it over the top of the rope. Taking the down strand, go round once and then round twice. And you take the bottom loop, twist it once, twist it twice, take the lower strand through that loop, down to the hook, and then apply pressure by pulling the end of the strand. Then secure this off, doing a couple of half hitches. The examiner will then ask you to take it apart. You do it by uncoiling what you did, pushing the rope back through the loop, unhooking it and packing it away. The examiner has asked you to restrain a load, and you have chosen the web strap and ratchet. On the end of both there is a hook These hooks go on the corresponding eyes, one on here on the front and one on the back. So we put the ratchet on first and just leave it hanging down. And then you go to the other side, keeping it under pressure, roll the strap completely over the top of the trolley and then unroll it, checking for wear, rips or frays. Then keeping it under pressure and straight and level, insert it into the cam on the ratchet. Pull it through a little bit, feed it back across the top of the cam and out the other side. Pulling it through, keeping the pressure on the ratchet so as it doesn't unhook from the other side. Eventually, it will take up the weight of the ratchet and you'll be able to hold it at the top of the trolley. And you take the ratchet handle and you just carefully ratchet it up until it becomes tight. Then you take the strap and tidy it up. By rolling it back on itself. And tucking it in the handle. Pull the ratchet down, nice and tight, and that's it done. The examiner will then ask you to release the ratchet device. Take the strap out from there, grasp the release lever, pull it down, take it all the way up and back against itself, and you will feel the tension come off. Holding the ratchet in your hand, you'll be able to pull the strap all the way through. Then you roll up the strap and put it away. The examiner has asked you a question which has made you select the chain and the tensioner. Your instructor will go through the scenario. The tensioner has a device here which allows you to tighten or loosen. I will demonstrate that through the demonstration. It's not important to know the setting right now. At the end of the chain there are hooks with catches. Attach them to the eyes on both sides, going through the middle of the trolley. Then pull the chain all the way through the trolley. You ensure that the gate is on the outside. You get the tensioner and you attach it to the chain, ensuring the weld is on the outside. Do the same on the other side, ensuring that the weld is on the outside. Then you tighten the ratchet by moving it backwards and forwards. As you tighten it, you look at the screw thread to make sure it's tightening. And you will find that it is secure. And then pack it away. This is a low tensioning bar and you've selected it for securing a roller cage. Your instructor will give you detailed instructions on how to use this. This one has been designed specifically for use with this DVSA test trolley. So it's a little bit smaller than one you would get issued with your lorry. But the use of it is exactly the same. You place the bar on the position of the trolley that has been designed to take its use. Then you crank over the bar and lock it into position, and it is secure. The examiner will then expect you to take the bar off or show how it is released. You squeeze down on the bar, press the silver trigger in, release it, and it comes off. Following on from the restraining devices, the examiner may ask you, you have been left with a half load of roller cages. Where on the vehicle would you place those roller cages? You would point to the front, to the headboard of the vehicle, you would move all the roller cages forward and then restrain them as previously taught. So continuing on the section of loading the vehicle, I've covered the restraining devices, but the examiner may ask you further questions regarding the loading of your vehicle. Your vehicle is fully loaded and ready to do a delivery. Show me some of the checks you would carry out to ensure your vehicle isn't overloaded. The first check you can do is check the tallies on your paperwork, adding up the amount of weight there is. Also, some loads have the weights on already and you can tot up the weights there, but you have to do a further check. Once you have tallied up the load weights, then you need to check also that you haven't overloaded the vehicle by checking the V1 ministry plate, normally found inside the passenger door. I've removed this one just to make it easier for the camera because it is found behind the seat. It can sometimes be on the bulkhead here, and it can sometimes be down below. Another check is to check that the tyres are not bulging at the bottom. And for smaller LGVs, with leaf spring metal suspension, you check that the spring isn't flat. Continuing with loading your vehicle, the examiner may ask you, you're going on a long journey that's beyond the range of your vehicle fuel tank. What checks would you do to ensure you had enough fuel for that journey, or the means to source some? The first check, you would check the vehicle fuel tank gauge is full with enough fuel for the first part of your journey. Secondly, you can ensure that you've got a fuel card or cash to pay for the fuel. Then you check the fuel tank itself, you check it for security, that it's not going to fall off, and that the pipes are secure and there's no drips, there's no fuel underneath, and that your lock-in fuel cap is secure. As this vehicle is a fridge, you would also check the fridge fuel tank to ensure there was enough fuel to run the fridge for the journey. In this section, you're going to cover the security of the vehicle and its contents. The examiner will ask you where you might securely park your vehicle and what additional security measures you may take. Firstly, you would always try to park in a well-lit area or a secure parking place. You could also reverse the vehicle up against a wall or against another parked up vehicle, ensuring that you don't impede their exit. Remove the keys and exit the vehicle, ensuring your own health and safety is secure, making sure you don't step out into traffic. Don't leave any personal items or valuable items on display in the cab. Lock the door. Activate any security measures. Then walk around the vehicle checking any seals and doors are locked. Checking that locks are locked and seals, if they're fitted, are still fitted. The examiner may ask you, you've been given a different vehicle for the day. What visual and practical safety checks would you carry out prior to taking this vehicle on the road? You would start with a vehicle walk-around check. We provide you with a little crib sheet and it's perfectly okay to use it, and I suggest that you do. The first thing you would check is you check your wheel nuts. On this particular vehicle, your mechanic has provided wheel nut indicators. This will check that they've all got the same torque setting all the way round. You can also look at the thread to make sure that there is the equal amount of thread exposed all the way round. Then you check your tyres, you would check the tread to make sure that it's got 75% at 1 millimetre around the whole of the tyre. If you're unsure, you report it to your transport manager. You also check the tyre pressure using the correct equipment. You then walk around the whole of the vehicle, switch the ignition on and put all the lights on. It may be useful also when you check the brake lights to get somebody to assist you. If there is no one to assist you, once you've checked that the tail lights work, you can use a stick or another type of device. I use the shrink wrap here, push it in underneath the brake pedal, and it will ensure that the brake lights come on. And then you can walk to the back and check them. And then remove it and store it away securely. As I walk around the vehicle, I will point out the various things. You check that the side lights are working at the top and anywhere along the vehicle. You check the fuel tank for security, make sure that the fuel lines are correct, there's no leak, there's no diesel below, and that the fuel cap is secure. You check this light, walking down the vehicle, checking that nothing is damaged or falling off. You check this light, and you check this wheel as previously taught, not forgetting on this axle that there's another wheel to the rear. And moving down, you've got another light here. And then you check the rear lights. Got two at the top, then the rear lights here and the brake lights as I previously instructed if you're on your own. And then you check the number plate lights. Then you continue down the passenger side of the vehicle, checking the wheels, checking the tyres, checking the wheel nut indicators and any damage as you make your way back to the front of the vehicle. So you arrive at the front of the vehicle, you check that the mirrors are present and secure and not cracked or smashed. Get around the front, check the lights, make sure they're working, and to check the main beam, you can go behind another vehicle or to a wall or a mirror, making sure there's no cracks in the windscreen and making sure that the number plate is clean and secure. And then you get inside the cab, switch the vehicle off and then switch it back on, and make sure that on the instrument panel all the lights illuminate and then the ones that are supposed to go off, go off. Then you check the horn, the indicators, check your windscreen washers and your wipers are working and you've got enough fluid in your reservoir for your journey. And you have to check the height indicator. In the UK, all vehicles over 3 metres or 9'10" must display a height indicator. Don't take it that every time you drive this vehicle, it will be the same. Your vehicle height may change, and it's very important that you know it and it is displayed in the cab. You then need to do an air leak test. If there is 2 people, it's quite easy. You can build the air up, press the brake pedal, and somebody can listen for the brake air releasing out through the brake lines. If you're on your own, you will need to start the vehicle up, switch it off, press the brake pedal and listen hard for air leaks. Whilst you start the engine, you can also do the exhaust check by looking over your shoulder and looking in the mirrors to see if there is excessive smoke, which may show there is a fault with your engine and prevent you from driving the vehicle. That's my exhaust fumes check done. Now I check using a gauge that there is sufficient air to carry out my air leak check. I switch off the vehicle, press the brake pedal and listen. I can't hear a leak. I could also get out and walk around to see if it is leaking from anywhere else. And finally, I've got to check that the brakes work. So I'm going to have to drive the vehicle forward approximately 2 meters and apply the brakes. The next section we're going to cover is preventing criminality, the trafficking of drugs and contraband, and the prevention of trafficking of illegal immigrants. The examiner will expect you to carry out some checks. You need to check under the vehicle, on top of the vehicle, inside the vehicle. And in particular, you need to check in lots of little cubby holes around the vehicle. So you need to become very familiar with your vehicle. Now, it's not easy for everyone to get under the vehicle and into some of these places, but it can be a place where a criminal might place an item of contraband. Something I use, and it's an idea in your LGV career, is to use a selfie stick. Lots of people have a telephone, but if you don't have a mobile telephone, you can also use a mirror. And you place the device inside your selfie stick, and you can get into places and above and on top of places that you wouldn't be able to do normally from the ground. Checking on top of the vehicle, you might be lucky enough to be able to park next to some steps or some stairs where you'll be able to get on top. But if you can't, you can use this method. Now, you may not have a selfie stick, but you can pick these up very, very cheaply, or you can improvise with half a broom handle or something of that nature. Later on in this demonstration, I will show you how I use a selfie stick in order to check for contraband or the trafficking of illegal immigrants. So very quickly, I'm going to go through some of the checks that you would need to look at, but you'd get familiar with your own vehicle. Anywhere where you can put your hand in, you need to check. Behind the number plate, in and around the tow hook, that's important. You need to check up around here. Be careful not to touch any of these hot items. You need to check in and around this area to make sure nothing has been placed. You look all around here, looking in, looking up, underneath the dash, making sure nothing has been placed. This area of the vehicle gets dirty very quickly, and you will notice tamper signs. Lots of trucks, like this one, the front grille can't be opened unless you open it from the inside. But that does not deter the criminal. Also, look right underneath here and check along and underneath the vehicle, having a real good look to make sure there is no illegal immigrants hiding under the body. You need to check all the cubby holes on the vehicle. Here is an example. This is where you'll have your personal stuff, you'll have things for the vehicle. You need to take your things out and look underneath. I've got my selfie stick in there. You've got your toolbox. Have a look inside, make sure no one has placed anything. You need to look under here. Great opportunity to use your selfie stick. You can have a look with the camera on, getting right underneath the cab, looking into these areas which you wouldn't be able to see normally. You could also use your torch to light up the area. So you can see better in there, you can do that. You need to check all around underneath the body, check that the fuel cap hasn't been tampered with, looking underneath the truck, all these places, looking behind the sidebars, looking underneath the box, looking underneath the chassis, getting a great picture there underneath the chassis. I'm looking all around the fridge tank, and I continue the whole length of the vehicle. Come down to the back, I can check between the tyres, and I can check underneath the chassis. Continuing your checks down the outside of the vehicle, doing all the things I said. And when you get to a point like this, If any of the seals are broken or been tampered with, or you think that it's been accessible from the outside, then you need to check it. Open either the back door or the side door, if there's one side door fitted, and have a look inside. Then you look inside, all the way around, up, down and along. Make sure there's nothing inside, and there is no need to get on board the vehicle for this test. I now need to be able to check on top, and it's really important that you do this. Illegal immigrants can hide behind the air kit on the top of the cab. If you're not comfortable with doing this, then you could explain it to the examiner, but I'm going to demonstrate how to do it. I've safely secured my selfie stick, and I'm going to climb into the cab using 3 points of contact. I'm now firm and secure. I've got my hand held on the stanchion. I reach my stick. Both feet are firmly on the floor. I press the button. The camera is on. Holding tight. Look in behind the fairing and the air kit. I've got a good view of inside the fairing. There's nothing there. I get on top of the fridge box and then on top of the load. I switch my camera off, re-secure it, and then getting 3 points of contact, get into the cab, because now I need to check the cab. Checking inside the cab, you need the seats all the way forward and reclined forward so you can get right in behind the seats, checking for any contraband. And you get to the mattress, lift the mattress up, check all the way under the mattress, and then lift the bed up as well. Looking in the cubby hole underneath the bed, and this toolbox you check from outside but check again from inside, making sure there's no contraband in there. Feel the curtains on both sides. On top there's a cubby hole, there's another cubby hole on top on this side, and you check all the way around, make sure there is no contraband. When checking the front of the vehicle, don't put your shoes on the seats. You might not be the only person that drives this vehicle, and we need to keep it clean and hygienic. So you check at the top, all the cubby holes once again, looking inside. This has a skylight. We've checked on top of the skylight with the camera. We can also put your head through and have a look up top, make sure there's no contraband there. You have to check all these little areas, all the way down underneath the dash. That's a fuse box cover, that's solid. If you can get hands underneath it, a criminal can, so you check all the way under there, looking to make sure there's been nothing tampered with and there's no sign of contraband being placed. If the carpets lift the carpets up and have a look, and then you will finish your check and you are sure that you can move off safely, having prevented any criminality and illegal immigrants. The examiner may wish to test your ability to prevent physical risks, and this is done by carrying out a walk-around check. I showed you how to do that earlier because one of the points in security of vehicle and contents is carry out a walk-around check. That's how you would do it, that's how I taught it, and that will cover this section. Moving on, the last section is assessing emergency situations. There are two types of emergency situations. There's a brake fault and a fire. The examiner may ask you, how would you deal with a small wire fire that's occurred whilst you're driving down the motorway? So you've got flames coming out of the engine compartment. Here we have 4 different fire extinguishers. This one is water, this one is foam, this one is powder, and this one is CO2. Do not use a water or a foam extinguisher on an electrical fire, because water and wetness on electricity is not a good place. You're driving down the motorway, you notice the flames, you need to check your mirrors, indicate your intention to move over to the hard shoulder, and move over to the hard shoulder safely and pull up safely and securely. Apply the handbrake, put the vehicle into neutral and switch it off. If you have a battery isolator, then you isolate the battery, remove the keys and get out of the vehicle on the passenger side. Once you're out of the vehicle with your CO2 fire extinguisher or your dry powder fire extinguisher, you will fire the contents of that fire extinguisher into the grille and up and around the parts of the front of the vehicle to try and extinguish the fire, keeping yourself safe at all times. Do not fire a CO2 extinguisher in the cab. You could suffer asphyxiation and become a casualty. Stay out of the vehicle and phone the emergency service or get help. The examiner may ask you how you would check if the compressor was working correctly, and he may ask you also how you would check for air leaks on the vehicle. How you would demonstrate this is by firstly turning the ignition on and then draining the air tank by pumping the foot brake. That's the air tank fully drained. And now I'll switch on the engine to recharge the air tanks. Once the air tank is fully charged, switch the vehicle off, press and hold the foot brake. See if I can hear any leaks. I could also get a colleague to press and hold the foot brake whilst I walk around the vehicle and listen for leaks. Once I've released the foot brake, I get out of the vehicle and I walk around listening for air leaks, and I'd also examine where possible any air lines quite up close to see if I could hear any leaks. That concludes the Mainstream CPC Module 4 training film. I hope it's been a useful guide for you, and I urge you to get some professional training and assistance with booking your CPC Module 4 test and exam. I wish you the very best in your LGV driving career and absolutely the best on your CPC Module 4 test. Thank you for watching.